Welcome to the Six Again podcast, your new destination for all things NRL. Here to bring you everything from team news to best bets are your hosts Adam Hoy and Jarrod Newton. Let's kick off.
You're not recording yet. Good. Hold up. There's a sanitizer.
That's a great way to start. And welcome in. Jarrod did not know we were recording, but there we go. Welcome to our first midweek episode in a few weeks. Just with everything going on, we thought we'd go back to 2 shows a week. We have another interview lined up in the middle of this episode, a bit of a shorter one. Media personality known as The Mole, been around 40 years or so, NRL journalist, so that's a really interesting interview. What other topics have we got on, Jarrod?
Yeah, okay. So obviously everyone knows that we're finally back into the footy. May 28th, it's going to be the first game.
Yes!
We're all pretty excited about that. No one actually knows who's playing though, so we'll keep an ear out for that. Players can start training again on the 4th, but obviously there's a million unconfirmed reports that there's been a few teams doing the dirty and training by themselves. So
in the bush, doing the dirty in the bush.
Doing the dirty in the bush. So yeah. So obviously it's been a pretty good day for Rugby League overall. We're back to start, which is great. So over this week, we're going to keep an eye on the teams outside of New South Wales. So obviously that all the teams are coming to New South Wales to play. Darius Boyd has already said out in public that he refuses to go to New South Wales and live there without his family.
I love C. Gordon Tallis's response.
Everyone's response. He got ripped from one end to the other.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on how all the teams are handling that, especially the Warriors. What do you say they're supposed to come back on in Australia the first?
Yeah, the dates that the NRL's looking at is they want the Warriors in here and they're working with the New Zealand Australian government to get the Warriors on Australian shores on the 1st of May. Obviously, they'll be in quarantine, but if they're in quarantine as a team, they should be able to start training anyway.
Yeah. So I feel like that's a big. We did mention it. That's a big deal getting them over here because that's an international one. Big news this week. If you want to find out more information of it, but Todd Greenberg got fired.
No, he didn't.
He didn't get fired. He quit, didn't he?
Yeah, he supposedly, there's a lot of stuff that was leading up to it. The last straw supposedly was an email to Peter V'landys from a club CEO stating that he's been trying to get answers from the NRL for 2 weeks and it wasn't happening. That seemed to be the last straw. And then Todd Greenberg stood down. He got a $500,000 payout.
Where's that money come from?
That was on Monday. Tuesday was meant to be the big meeting it was a commissioners meeting. That's when they were meant to hash out the TV rights deal. Park Lane, Oakhall Sports Advisory that we talked about in the last episode, as well as Channel 9 and Fox. Obviously, that was a little disrupted with Todd Greenberg stepping down. Talks are still ongoing between 9 and Fox, and V'landys came out this afternoon stating that optimistically they'd like that sorted by Friday, more than likely early next week. But it's looking like Fox and Sports are working together to get something organised. The only other details that have been released is the first round is going to go from Thursday through to Monday. Wouldn't be surprised if it's something else that we see going forward after that. But Wayne Pearce, head of Project Apollo, also stated that hopefully they'll be able to go over what the draw is going to look like, how long it's going to go for, where the fixtures are going to be played early next week. So I'm guessing that's Monday to Wednesday.
Awesome.
Public Rugby League, so Junior Rugby League state competitions in New South Wales. They're looking at an 18th of July kickoff, which is after the school holidays, June, July holidays. That is going off the state health ministers and governments guidelines that on the 1st of June, social distancing restrictions may be lifted or public restrictions may be lifted. So they're going off that date. So that July 18 can change. That's pretty much where we're at.
If you're interested next week, I'm sure we'll hear something about junior Queensland Rugby League.
Yeah, I'd
sooner
say
rather than later.
Palachek's been very cautious, which I'm not going to begrudge her of that. Queensland's in a pretty good spot. We haven't had any cases for 2 days now.
2 days. Yeah.
So the Broncos, the Titans, and the Cowboys haven't been granted a release to leave the state yet. That's one of the things the NRL have to work out, obviously, with the governments, but they seem very positive about that. And yeah, at this stage, it looks as though they'll all be starting their comp base in New South Wales. Where in New South Wales, we're not sure. That's still stuff to come out. But they seem pretty confident that we're going to be starting on the 28th of May. And it seems more than confident that it'll be longer than the 15 rounds that we were expecting.
Which is really good. So, yeah, it's been a pretty positive week. There was one pretty reasonably negative thing.
Yeah.
Mitch Cronin was he found in a pool, unfortunately, passed away. So pay our respects to the Cronin family in this bad, terrible time. This is not one you want to hear, but yeah, so sad news all around for the winning Manly Seagulls. He was our captain, I'm pretty sure. So there's been a fair amount of support for the rugby league community, to the family, and to the Winner Manly Club.
We're just paying our respects from Six Again podcast, and you know, the whole rugby league world's supporting you guys, and it's pretty much all we can say on the subject, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So Jarrod said, a bit of a bittersweet week, but with everything going on, like I said, back to 2 pods a week. We'll have another interview dropping on the Sunday as well, but tonight's interview is an insight into a rugby league mainstay of a personality. Parents of people our age in their 20s, 30s would have been reading his columns back in Rugby League Week. We look into how his career started as a 19, 20-year-old sports journalist, writing for Sydney Roosters over at the eastern suburbs, and all the way through his career, how social media's had an influence, how he's got 150,000 followers, and how he's freelance writing at the moment. And we asked a couple of questions about his access to players and clubs, and it's really interesting. So sit tight and enjoy our interview with the Mole, or Moley, as he's affectionately known. And on the other side of that, Jarrod and I are going to go to war over the greatest Manly and greatest Newcastle team since 1988.
Want to point out, with the Mole, he's actually, so we're jokingly calling him our media manager. My brother has been great in trying to organise all our interviews. He got onto the Mole, and a few weeks ago, was it last week or a few weeks ago, he actually got onto us to improve our social media, and he's been really good in putting us in touch with a few people about that kind of stuff. So obviously me and Adam are a bit of the definition of a startup, but he's been really, really good lending a hand. Supportive. And yeah, so he's been, I wasn't actually able to attend this interview, unfortunately. I had a prior commitment, but yeah, from what I understand, Adam told me he's been really, really great the whole process, and as we said, he didn't have to do it. He was but he did it anyway, which was really good. And
his phone may have gone off 4 or 5 times through the interview because he's a very busy man.
Yeah.
And the contact he's put us in touch with, Paul Ryan, heads up an online site called Today's Tale, which is a whole bunch of sports stories that are a hell of a lot more in-depth than you're going to see on any of your mainstream channels at the moment. So definitely worth a read, and we'll have a link to that site in the bio of this episode, and also in the description in the YouTube video. So enjoy about 25 minutes, and we'll see you on the other side. So, g'day guys, this is our interview with Moley, or the Mole. You may know if you've read some of his articles online over the past 40 years, also back in Rugby League Week. He's been in the rugby league industry, like I said, for 40 years, working for the Daily Telegraph, Channel 9, His name's synonymous with the Rugby League Week magazine when it was running, and recently he's signed on as a writer on rugbyleaguehub.com as one of their Patreon writers. So I'd like to welcome in Moley. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, pleasure to be here, Adam. We got no footy, but there's a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully May 28th we'll actually have some footy to talk about.
It was pretty positive how Wayne Pearce spoke this afternoon. Looking at 28th of May, 4th of May for training, and I did see in one of your stories that there may have been whispers of a certain coach and certain players training a bit earlier, but that's that. I think you're leaving that to the eye test the first couple of rounds, see if we can pick what team that is. So I won't push you for that one.
Yes, there's strong rumours, and funny enough, I wrote that a couple of days ago, and in the last 48 hours I've been told of two other teams that are we're not talking 30 players on a field. We're talking about groups of 7-8 players running around the bush somewhere, just basically getting themselves fit, because I know myself, and you probably know, you train by yourself. You never push yourself as hard as you would in a group situation, someone yelling and screaming at you. So
exactly,
that's basically what's going on, and knowing the rugby league world, it's not hard to believe.
No, it's and when I was actually reading, I saw one team. The first thing I thought was, it's not going to be the only team. It'll be a couple of others. So I just wanted to start kind of with, you're I'm going to say mysterious figure, I guess, with regards to your stories under the Moley heading and that sort of stuff. But you're very well respected in the journalism and the rugby league industry. So I've got a couple of questions based around that. I've seen the words impeccable sources with regards to where you get information from. And
let me just take my jacket off.
All right.
It's getting warm. It's still nice and warm in Sydney.
Oh yeah, it was 30 plus up here today. So no, I know that feeling. Where does a source begin? Like, how does one go about I'd say sourcing a source to get information from that's going to be reliable and truthful and factual, if you don't have, say, a large media backing behind you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, basically, Adam, you just it's a hard slog. Like particularly in the current climate, there's a real air of mistrust between the journalists and the players, and you can sense that just if you look at social media, you'll see that a lot of players don't have a high opinion of journos. So you've really got to build those bridges, sort of earn a player's trust. And see, back in the old days, and as you said, it's embarrassing to admit, but I've been doing this for 40 years, and I started about 1980 when I was 19, 20 years old, and the world was very different then. We had no social media. Players had real jobs. They didn't have managers. There was no such thing as media managers at clubs. These days the media managers, their job seems to be, in a lot of cases, stopping players and journos talking to each other, which can be very frustrating. And so you basically have to work on that to get a player's trust, and that takes time. But at my age, I'm sort of more in tune with coaches, officials, trainers. You get to know these people over the years. Like you mentioned Wayne Pearce before. Like I covered some of Wayne's first games when he's 18 years old. We go back a long way. I can ring him up, have a chat with him, and if he says something's off the record, he knows we go back far enough that it'll say off the record. And now I'm writing about his son, which really makes me feel old.
You brought up an interesting point in there with regards to when you started. You were ages 19, 20. how do you go about approaching teams or players? And you said with the absence of media managers and they had regular jobs then, but they were still, I'd say, elite figures or well-known figures. How does a bloke who's 19, 20 without the advantage of nowadays social media contacting? Did you just walk into a change room? Were you hired by a company then? How did that sort of approach come about?
Yeah, it was a long, slow process. My first gig was writing for a paper called the Wentworth Courier, which is actually still going. It's a local paper in the eastern suburbs. I was a mad Roosters fan as a kid, and I noticed that start of one season, probably 79, 78, they didn't have their weekly, report on the Roosters, and I found out later the guy who did it died. So that was his poor luck and my good luck. And I think I rang the Wentworth Courier. They got me in there and they said, "You're very young, but we'll give you a go." And they paid me $5 a column and gave me a press pass. And I still remember this little blue press pass, the feeling when they put it in my hand.
That would have been exciting.
I thought, wow. Yeah, and they probably thought, we're screwing this kid, paying him $5 a column. But what they didn't know, I would have paid them $5 a column.
Yeah, exactly, for the opportunity
to get a start. And from there, I went to Rugby League Week, and I was very fortunate then because Rugby League Week was the Bible.
Yeah.
And you walk up to a player or you ring a player and you say, "I'm from Rugby League Week." Back then they'd give you the time of day. Later on it became harder as there were more and more journalists. But see, back then, in a press box, you'd have maybe 5, 6 blokes at a first grade game. You'd have one from the Herald, one from the Sun, which has since died, one from the Telegraph, one from the Mirror, which has since died, and one from Rugby League Week. And that was the press corps, yeah. So, now you walk into a press box, there's 20 people in there, half of them you wouldn't know who they are.
Yeah.
They're working for digital media, working for all sorts of different websites. And it's probably, in fairness to the players, it's probably pretty hard for them because, all these guys want to talk to the players and, it's very hard that they all want the Jonathan Thurstons, the Andrew Johnses, whoever the star is at the moment. And he can't do 20 individual interviews.
Exactly.
So they end up doing these all-in interviews, which are great for Fox Sports News and things like that. But for Rugby League Week, which would come out 4 days later, they're absolutely useless. So I would have to, find something different. I just wouldn't even go into the all-in press conferences that you see on TV these days. And you look at them, they're very sterile, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
How do you think you'll go on the weekend? And what went wrong last weekend? And the players just give cliched answers, and they're trained to do that.
I was going to say, does that come down to their media training? Give enough away without giving too much away.
Exactly, and coaches are terrified. Like the last thing they want is a player giving the opposition ammunition, saying, "Oh, Souths are soft. We'll come out and we'll smash them." No one will ever say that, even though they might believe it. They get pulled in the line very quickly and told you say that this is going to be a very hard game, even if we're playing the team on the bottom of the ladder. So,
and that's all about being a robot compared to being a character. And as soon as we get someone who's a character, a player, or coach, the mainstream media jump all over it. So it's like, what do you want? Cliched answers or something original? And fans want something original.
Yeah, and when we were talking off air before, you mentioned Jamie Soward and James Maloney, and they're two very refreshing exceptions to the rule. They were always go-to guys who weren't afraid to say something. But sadly, they're becoming fewer and fewer. We had so many characters back in the good old days. The Mark Guys of the world.
Oh, that would have been fantastic.
Ricky Stewart was great. He always spoke his mind. I could just list off dozens more. But these days those players are, it's encouraged out of them.
Yeah.
And I think it's to the detriment of the game, because you just don't get those great stories, those funny stories that you get in other sports, and that we used to get in days gone by.
You mentioned a couple of things in there with regards to the mainstream media answers, and I'll come back to that just later on. It's just a refresher for myself. You're still seeing, even with all the new age journalism, etc., going for the mainstream storylines, you're still seen as a respected newsbreaker. And when something you put out there, when you put something out or a story comes out with your name on it, it's not done so for clickbait or for maybe a headline, but it's based around more fact rather than opinion. So 2 days later, if that story comes out, more often than not, it's actually true. Whereas your Fox and your mainstream, they've got this big heading for something that's maybe 2 or 3 weeks down the track. How do you still go around delivering a story and keeping it maybe, say, secret from a mainstream media source? So, yeah, just along those sort of lines, because you're still doing it, even though times have changed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's such a competitive industry. There's basically probably, I wouldn't even know how many journalists, hazarding a guess, I'm talking about in print, digital, TV. There'd probably be 50, 60 journalists in rugby league in, New South Wales and Queensland, basically all after the one big story. So, yeah, so it's tough. And that's where this thing you were mentioning before about sources, you go to people, sort of outside the box a little bit. Sometimes your best sources are trainers, club doctors, the doorman. There's all sorts of guys who know what's going on and are happy to have a chat and share it to you. But of course, on the condition of anonymity. And if you look at a lot of my stories, it'll say a source at the Rooster said. I've got to do it that way because guys like Nick Politis, if they find out who my source is, they'll sack them. So it can get pretty heavy, and clubs are often trying to find out who my sources are, and it's not just me, other journos as well, because they want to keep all their news in house, and they don't want any leaks. But that's the beauty of rugby league. There's always leaks.
There's always something going on.
Yeah.
All right. So let's shift to say a darker side of, well, it could be, I don't know. I'm asking the question. With this competition, have you ever been, you're onto a story, it's an exclusive story. Has a story ever been poached off you by a better offer, by, say, a mainstream, or has there been a mainstream media or someone in a higher position tried to buy a story off you before it goes to air? Has that ever occurred?
You do lose stories all the time. Like I'll get, someone will tell me something like, they might say, Andrew Johns is making a comeback. And I'll think, geez, that's a great story. But, you got to weigh it up. You think, is it realistic? Could it happen? And then you got to start making phone calls. And as soon as you start making phone calls, it sets off alarm bells. And you're also eating up precious time. And so you've really got to weigh up, do I just go bang, put the story out there? Is my source trusted enough that I can just go with it? Or am I going to look like a complete fool when it doesn't come true? So timing is the main problem when you lose stories. I've had an example like that happen. I'm chasing it, and then 10 minutes later, I'll look on Twitter and there's Fox Sports News, Andrew Johns to make a comeback. So it's a juggling act. There have been times, it happened recently, and I won't mention the guy because he's a mate of mine, but I asked someone who'd been through some off-field drama, shall we say, would you talk to me? And he said, "Oh, sorry, I'm not talking," and we're old mates, so I didn't pressure him. And next thing, I saw him on television, and so I said, I'd sent him a message. I couldn't resist. I said, "I thought you weren't talking," and he said, "Oh, I decided to talk to TV," and we both know why he would have spoken to TV. They would have made it worth his while.
Yeah, it's a shame. because on one side, over the time, you built the rapport with these sources. You're respected, and I'm sure there's sources that you have that as soon as they've told you something, you're confident enough you can go with it, which gives you the advantage over, say, the new age reporters who don't have that. But yeah, at the other side, they've got the cash flow and all that sort of stuff where they can make the stories worthwhile. So the fact that you're still as relevant as you are in the game today is a credit to you and the work that you do. With regards to what's going on at the moment, we had Todd Greenberg stepping down on Monday. There was meant to be a big meeting on Tuesday with the commission with regards to the TV rights. So Jarrod and I talked on the last episode about Park Lane out of the US and Opal Sports Advisory out of the UK. Putting up money and then even interest in buying stakes in the game. How do you see maybe private ownership or by overseas sports firms of some of our teams maybe in the future?
Yeah, look, I think Rugby League has a great opportunity at the moment. If we do get up and running at the end of May, and we're one of the few sports in the world being played, I can see the league's global vision that we've been talking about since the days of Super League actually being some sort of chance. The ESPNs and the like may be showing it because they're obviously starved for sport in the US.
Oh, yeah. They're a lot further off than we are.
Yeah, and that's it. Things with the virus are so much worse over there that they probably won't be able to get up and running. So if Rugby League's smart, and that's the key word, it'd be great if they could do a deal with some of these overseas companies because, sport is such a rare commodity at the moment. Like I like having a punt and I'm betting on the Belarusian soccer league just because it's about the only thing that's going. And the really sad thing is I'm getting better results on that than I do on Rugby League or the English Premier League. So, I do a little bit of homework, but it's a sad indictment on my betting skills. Does
it just come down to whatever team you can pronounce?
No, I put a little bit of science into it. I look up the ladder, the premiership table of where the teams are, and it also shows their last 5 games. And I also have a rule never to go against the home team in soccer because for some reason the home ground advantage is much greater in soccer than most sports. That seem to have a much more positive mindset at home, whereas the away team are usually happy to just go away with a draw.
This completely separate to anything. It's just something you just said then. I had a lucky opportunity at the end of last year to, as part of professional development, go down to the Broncos and their training set up, and we're taking a session through their head trainer. And their training field's actually designed and angled exactly the same as Suncorp. So when they kick a ball at the training field, the roll that they get there will be exactly the same as it does in Suncorp, all the way down to the angle and the slope of the grass with regards to home field advantage. So I just thought, man, that's intense going to that sort of level of like a training ground. So
yeah, I must admit I didn't know that.
It was something they just threw out there. I was just, whoa.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it would definitely give you an edge if you know how much weight to put on a kick and that sort of thing, because inches mean everything in rugby.
Oh yeah,
aren't they?
Huge.
Particularly when it comes to those kicks into the dead ball area. So, very interesting.
So I've only got a couple more. Best, worst player, agent, coach, NRL person. It's up to you that you've interviewed or gained access to. So maybe the hardest person you've ever had to gain access to because you really wanted a story, or just the best person to interview that you've always just had a good time and gotten a good story at the same time?
Oh, gee, it's hard. Looking back over 40 years, probably the guy I've had the most fun with, and you'd know him as a lovable larrikin, is Mark Guy. He's a great fella. I'd probably put Wendell Saylor in there with him. MG, I used to ghost his column in Rugby League Week, so we had a special relationship. Wendell, you remember when he had his little cocaine problem? He lived not far from me, and no one would let him play. He wasn't allowed to play league. He wasn't allowed to play union, so I got him to come down and play touch footy with us. We don't drag our touch footy field, and him and young Tristan, who was about 12 then, came along and played with us one season. And
why not?
Yeah, and it's been great to see Tristan become a first grader. He was up to about my chest then. I'm not very tall, but he's Wendell really pushed him at touch, and we could see then, even at 12, the kid had great footwork, great skills. I didn't know if he was going to become a first grader, but he came into his own last season, and he's just one of many players I'm looking forward to seeing, hopefully on May 28th.
Well, I think you've just answered my next question. Are there any present or upcoming NRL players or coaches or even journalists to keep an eye on in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret, but the guy I rate probably higher than I rate anyone as far as up and comers is Kalen Ponga. The things he's already achieved. Just amazing. In a Newcastle team that was really struggling a couple of years ago, he came in as a teenager and just absolutely blitzed them, and he's just getting better and better. And I think in 20 years' time we'll be talking about him the way we talk about the Wally Lewises, the Andrew Johnses.
Wow,
I think
that's a big call.
I think he's going to be that good a player, and I give him big raps on social media, and a lot of people bag him. So maybe he hasn't quite proved himself. Maybe I'm seeing something that's not there, but I just see, he's got just such amazing vision, so much speed. For a little guy, he's strong, he's tough. He seems to have it all, and he's still a baby in terms of experience. So if there's one player who I think is destined for superstardom, he'd be the one.
It's interesting then, something you highlighted is something that I hold in the highest esteem when I'm judging players is, you said it is vision, and I link that to ability to read the game. And I think as a game, we still don't value decision-making and rugby league IQ kind of as high as we could. And we talk about it when we talk about Thurston and Johns, etc. But I feel as though Thurston gets more raps for his toughness and his grit and his determination, which were part of made him so good. But his decision-making under pressure and Cronk and Johns is really what sets him apart from the rest. And if you're seeing that in Ponga, that's something you can't coach an athlete. If they've got the IQ, they've got the IQ.
Yeah.
So my boy's
and
just going
sadly,
to bed. Okay. I need my charger, actually, because the laptop's about to die, and then I'll put him to bed. We've only got a couple of minutes. Sorry about that. He's 3. So, you go on.
Stuff. Yeah, sadly, I think that it's actually coached out of a lot of players too.
Yeah.
You mentioned the term robots when it comes to media. Well, a lot of these guys become robots when they get on the field. They're just told, hit it up, get a quick play the ball, and that's it. And I know firsthand, I love my touch footy, and even at 60, I'm still running around the field. But over the years, I've played with guys who are first graders who you'd think are one-dimensional players, can just hit the ball up, can't pass the ball. But you get them on a touch football field, and let me just...
Hey, the media man himself.
And, you get them on a touch football field, Jesus, and all of a sudden these guys All right, that's the end of it. Yeah, you get these guys who are supposedly, just hit up merchants on a touch football field, and they're throwing these long cutout passes. They're making breaks, and I'm thinking, geez, these guys can actually, really play. They're not just tough blokes who make 30 tackles. But and I say to them, why don't you do that on the field? And they just shake their head and say, because I'm not allowed to. So yeah, it's a game of wearing your opposition down, of limiting errors, and sadly that's one of the problems we have. I mean, to me, it's the greatest game in the world, but it could be better if
it could be way better.
If we just took a little of the stereotyping out of it, if it wasn't just 6 hit-ups and a kick and try getting a repeat set. Now, how we do that, I don't know, but definitely the fatigue factor where you have less interchange and more players are playing more minutes, so they get tired. The little blokes start making more breaks. I think that's one thing we've got to look at, and obviously the NRL are looking at it because they've been doing it over the last couple of years.
We were lucky enough when I was playing footy still, we'd do a whole team trip down to the grand final. We did it for 4 years in a row, and we were there for when the Ipswich Jets got to the grand final, won the Queensland Cup versus the New South Wales Cup. And that's when the Walker brothers were coaching them, doing the short kickoffs to start the game, and the winger passing the fullback, going sideways, sideways, sideways. And there was people sitting around us going, what the hell are they doing? Because they'd never seen them play before. And I remember they were only up 8-0 or something at half time, but Newcastle they were versing, or Newtown, I can't remember. They were wrecked at half time because they were chasing the ball all over the field like this. Yeah. And they came off just scratching their heads going, what the hell's this team doing? And then the Jets just ran over them in the second half because they were burnt. But man, it was good to watch. It was so good to watch. You had no idea what was going to come next. It was a 5th tackle every tackle. It was fantastic. Just to finish off, have you heard or seen the online journalism network called The Athletic in the US or the UK?
No, I haven't. I've got to admit, I'm basically that busy, servicing my 150,000 Twitter followers, my Facebook followers. I just don't have the time to look at that. But if you send me the links, I'll certainly check them out.
I would just say it's I think we come from the same ilk with regards to what you put out, those sort of stories, the in-depth stories and getting to know players, and it's kind of taken off the last 2 years over there, and I'm hoping it comes to Australia eventually, and I think you'd be a great candidate to be one of the journalists for them because they do a lot of things that are very similar to your style, and they're taking on the big guys, and they're getting quite a good following. I just want to say thank you very much. It's been a enlightening interview. I've been quite looking forward to this, and I just want you to, I don't know how to say it, keep fighting the good fight, I guess, and try keep giving us the stories that are actually interesting and more than just a headline. And I think it's probably the longest that a Manly and a Parramatta fan have talked without saying anything about each other's teams in quite a long time.
I'm not really a Para fan, I've got to say.
Damn it, I was just going off the Sharks. One of my questions was, who's your actual team?
They just sent me a T-shirt. Actually, these days, I don't have a team. I was great mates with Tim Sheen, so when he was coaching Canberra, I was a Raiders fan. Then when he was at the Tigers, I was a Tigers fan. And that night in 2005, when they won the grand final, he let me sit on the bench. It was probably one of the highlights of my life.
Yeah.
I don't think any journalist ever done that in the history of the game, sat on the bench in a grand final. And, that was as good as it gets. But then they sacked him, so I'm not real big on the Tigers anymore. So I can honestly say these days I don't have a team. I just go for whoever I'm punting on.
And just watch players, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But it's been a pleasure, Adam, and good luck for you guys in the future. And anything I can do to help, just to reach out.
Thank you very much. I feel like a conversation like this needs to finish on a handshake. So thank you very much. And, Corona. Very good. Thanks again, mate. We'll finish it there, and good luck. Can't wait to read your next story. And to put a shout out, guys, check out rugbyleaguehub.com. The Moley is writing on their Patreon exclusive stories, but you can also see his stuff at Today's Tale as well on his Twitter feed. It's 9 at
follow
Moley.
me. It's at 9_Moley. The more followers, the better.
That's it. Thanks, mate.
All righty. Been a pleasure.
All right. So a couple of weeks ago, we threw out an idea that Jarrod, the Knights supporter, obviously they came into the comp in 88. So he was going to put his best Newcastle team from 88 to 2020 on paper. And I'm going to do the same for Manly, just to make the timing fair. And then we were thinking, it's going to be really cool if you guys, for the teams you support, do the same thing from 1988 through to 2020. Put forward your best team, send it in, and we'll cover that at the end. And we're going to have sort of like a bracket style tournament to find the best team from 88 onwards. Also, last minute today, I did my best Newcastle team from 88 onwards, and Jarrod did his best Manly team to see how wrong we actually are about each other's club. So to kick us off, Jarrod's going to go through his best Manly team from 1988 through to 2020.
All right, so
we're just going to clarify this is players at their peak for that club. So if they went off and played a hell of a lot better somewhere else, we're looking at their playing career at that club.
Yeah, so for example, you could have picked Maria Hargraves to play for Manly,
and he only played 6 games, so he's not going to be in there.
Okay, so obviously the fullback's going to be Brett Stewart. I don't think anyone's going to deny that. Before I say the next couple, this is what I've seen. So I'm only 27. I only remember from probably 2000 onwards. So anything before that,
you remember
really
from when you were 3? Is that what you're saying?
You know, I was 7, right?
Oh,
20
crap.
years ago, I'm 27. I wasn't born in 1997. So Adam just headbutted the thing.
I was trying to do a sick burn and completely failed.
Okay, so my wingers, because Stewart's a fullback, you can't take that away from him. The only person who could would be Tom Trbojevic, but I'll put him on the wing because that's where he debuted while Stewart was playing. 5-10 years' time, Stewart might take that position away from him, but you can just, right now it's Brett Stewart at fullback, and then Tommy Trbojevic on the wing. The other winger is David Williams. Your centres are Jamie Lyon and Steve Bell. They're not overly strike, but they'll set up your wingers better than anyone else, really, and they're defensively very strong. My halves are Cliff Lyons and Matt Orford. So Adam's got his eyebrow raised. He's not happy with me already. My front row is Brent Kite. I reckon he's one of the most underrated front rowers there was. He did his work all day. I loved him. And David Gillespie. I've seen highlights of him in between 94 and 97. He was a really good player. And then Matt Ballon. I couldn't really think of a hooker that you guys have, a star hooker that you guys have had over the years, but I don't remember Matt Ballon running too much, but he's pretty safe defensively, and I think he won the grand final in 08 with you, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so your back row and 11. There you go. So 2 grand final winning hooker. I don't think you've got anyone else. Your back row, I've got Stewart and Kennedy. Not much more. You got a ball player and a guy who's going to hit every hole you put in front of him. And then you got Jake Trbojevic at lock. I think he's going to go down as one of the probably greatest players ever.
Can you just do your back row again?
Stewart, Kennedy, and Jake Trbojevic. You're looking at me funny. What's wrong?
No, I just think you're missing somebody. But anyway, go on.
I don't know. I've got him later. Don't worry. If Lyons is in the team, don't worry.
He's not later. And then He's the first name on the sheet.
And then I got Daly Cherry Evans at 14. And then I got Watmo at 15. And then I've got Menzies. Just relax, okay? I've got him there. He was always a better bench player anyway. Come on. And then I got Mark Carroll, just because I want to see fireworks from the Newcastle squad, and everyone kind of knows what I'm talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And-
okay. So how wrong was I, Adam?
Oh. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. 8 differences, I think. At least.
Okay.
So, am I going to do my Newcastle team now, or am I going to do
No, you compare it now, and then you do your Newcastle team next.
All right. So, I'm just going to just checking one thing that just popped into my head for
Oh, mate, just so everyone knows, we spent probably about half an hour on this before the podcast. If you looked at Adam's sheet, I reckon he changed it about 12 times for both teams. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
All right. So, Manly team. Sorry, there was at least two names that Jarrod completely missed that have to be there. But anyway, Brett Stewart at fullback, yes. Trbojevic on one wing. You're not going to pick David Williams over Michael Robertson on the other wing.
I am 100%. I don't rate Dave Williams is just as good as Robertson.
No,
Maybe
Robertson's faster. He's better under the high ball. He's safer carrying the ball, and he's a better try scorer. So I'm going to take.
But David Williams had a pink beard.
That's true. Robertson could play while he was asleep.
Okay, so that's
He's the only player I think who's ever scored a hat trick in a grand final and has looked bored during the whole thing.
Who are your centers?
Jamie Lyon and Steve Maddai. So I don't know how you're going to pick Steve Bell over Steve Maddai, who can be.
Maddai is not as good as Bell. Bell's a
No, he's not as good as Bell. He's better. He can actually score a try by himself without having to be put through the game. And I love Steve Bell. He scored a try in our grand final as well. Defensively, yes, I'll give you Steve Bell's more safe overall, but I'd still rather run at Steve Bell than Steve Maddai.
Everyone would, but that's not a better player.
Did you see like the top 10 best hitters in the
I don't care about
league?
hits. I'm better
No,
all-round player.
I'm just saying they put George Tafua ahead of Steve Maddai. I was like, yeah, he's getting there, but no. Anyway.
No.
You got the half wrong. It's Cliff Lyons at 5'8" and DCE at halfback. Over Orford.
I don't know that was coming.
And you'll see there that Tuvey misses out, but he's definitely in the team. I've got Mark Carroll at starting prop because I need some aggression. Matt Ballin as well. He's nothing flashy. Doesn't need to be flashy in a team like this with all those points. Marty Tapau is the other starting prop.
Oh. No.
What?
He's like a knockoff version of Tamalolo, just 10 times worse. He's not that good.
So 10 times worse than Tamalolo is still better than 90% of the NRL.
All right, who's your second row?
Menzies, first name on the sheet. Kennedy and Glenn Stewart.
Glenn,
If
everyone listens to our next podcast, we asked the person who was the hardest second rower to tackle, and he actually mentions Glenn Stewart.
Yeah, that's
that could be a hint to who it is. So he was one of the hardest second rowers he's tackling. You're going to put him in the middle.
Fine, put Ben Kennedy at lock and put Glenn Stewart on the edge. Doesn't bother me.
Oh, when we go to Newcastle.
There you go. I'll do that then. I'll do that. There you go. Kennedy, because he played lock for Manly quite a bit.
I'll tell you why that's wrong in the Newcastle team.
Anyway, so my starting Manly will beat your starting Manly. Jeff Tuvey has to be in the team, so he's at 14. Just because he's got the versatility to at least play hooker if he needs to. Otherwise, he can come into the halves. Jake Trbojevic, Anthony Watmo. And I do like your pick of David Gillespie, actually. I would not have any issue with him in the 17. I was also tossing up Ian Roberts here, but this is my kind of out there pick. Like I said, I'm not 100% confident with it because he's still a young player and he's still growing, but I've loved what I've seen from him. And with aggression like Tapau, Carroll, and Kennedy, I need to bring some aggression off the bench. So I'm going to throw in AFB. and in for Noah
Really?
Blake.
Really? No.
Based on what he's done for Manly,
Oh,
from what
once
I've
he played a
seen,
year,
and
one decent year.
I love Brent Kite. I love what he did for Manly. I love Josh Perry, what he did for Manly. I love Ian Roberts, Gillespie. But I think at the end of his career, he's going to be, especially if he stays a one-club man, which would be awesome.
In England. He'll go to England.
He's going to be something fierce. And I'm looking at that team going, there's enough experience to cover any insecurities. So I'm happy with that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. I don't think
you've got
Adam
Menzies on the
Blake
bench straight away.
over Stewart and Kennedy.
Yeah.
You're not losing anything.
Skill, endurance.
Oh,
ball
I'm sorry.
playing,
Stewart
line
doesn't
running.
have skill.
Oh, he does.
Ben
just not as
Kennedy.
much.
Ben Kennedy, that's all we did.
Yeah, he just didn't score tries.
All right.
Like it was going out of fashion.
All
I
right,
read
show me
there's an
how-
article this week. I'm gonna have to find. I can't remember what channel it was on, but they, I'm gonna have to bring it up while we're doing this one. They're looking at the best
Yes.
all-round player of this era, and Menzies topped it, which I was very happy about.
Okay, so you read out your Newcastle team, and I'll tell you where you're wrong.
Now, I do have to say my big list of players for this is a lot shorter. There's a lot of 4, 5, 6 game players. This was more tough because I didn't know enough players. But anyway, I got Robbie O'Davis at fullback. There's only 2 players that could have gone there, and he is one of them. And there's nowhere else he's going to play, so he's going at fullback. Gidley and Tahu are the centers. I just remember hating them growing up because they were good. I've cut a cult hero, I think, from this club, and I've put Dane Gagai on the wing over Adam McDougall, and Jarrod just dropped his jaw. And on the other wing, I know Jarrod doesn't rate him, but he's their greatest ever try scorer, and he was amazing to watch there, and he got a New South Wales and Australian jersey from his time at Newcastle because he was the best winger in the game for like 3 years. So I'm going to put Achille Iwate on the other wing. I was looking at Jarrod got his head down because he's probably going to pick McDougall and Darren Albert because they had like nothing. Anyway, this was the hardest position for me, which was 5'8". So there's 3 players to squeeze into 2 spots, and I had to cut one of them. But then I was thinking, this guy at his peak was damn good, but he just had hamstrings that were as strong as my nanas. So I'm going to put Jarrod Mullen at 5'8". and pair him with Andrew Johns because that'd be a pretty devastating partnership, I think. Paul Harrigan at prop, number 8. And I think if I was in opposition, I was looking at their props. This is probably what I'd least want to see. That's why I put him in there. So I've paired him up against David Clemmer. So pretty much 2 clones as props. That would be quite scary with Danny Vidiris running the show at hooker. Steve Simpson at second row with Ben Kennedy. And for my lock, I've thrown in one of those players who was underrated, I think, his entire career and played damn well the whole time. I put in Jeremy Smith because I don't think you're ever going to lose anything with him playing. Everything he brought from Melbourne, he brought to Newcastle and did a damn good job. Now, when I was juggling the 6, the other 2 guys I had to split for number 14. So I've gone with Kurt Gidley. I don't like it, but I've put him there. And then I've put Josh Perry on the bench as a prop. Oh, crap.
What'd you do?
What's his last name?
Who?
I think I've just mixed 2 players up. Newton and Houston.
Oh, Chris
Which one?
Houston and Clint Newton.
Which one was the second row that played like 100-something games?
That would be probably Houston, but they probably would have both played the same amount of games.
Who would you pick?
Oh,
I'll
depends
probably
who you want.
I'll probably go Houston there. I'll put Houston.
Okay.
And I was just looking at, like, they've got a bit of aggression, or a lot of aggression in their starting pack. Harrigan, Clemmer, Kennedy, I'm like, they need to bring some off the bench. He's not the most talented player, but damn, he could hit. And he was awesome in Origin, so I've thrown in Costigan as your number 17. And Jarrod's shaking his head like he's got a better idea.
Sweet Jesus. Okay. Now you better be schooled.
It's hard when you don't have a lot of good players to pick from.
Okay, I understand that this is going to be a big call. I've actually put Ponga at fullback over.
That's the one I had. That's the one I had to leave out.
It's hard, but this Ponga's got way too much X factor.
I know.
X factor. Davis was so safe, but Ponga's just Ponga. And I understand he's only been there 2 years. But if he stays or re-signs, which
only
I'm not
one
sure
good season for Noah Blake.
Well, he's had 2 good seasons. Pull your head in.
It's easy to look good at Newcastle.
So Ponga's at fullback. Okay, and then
would you have taken Ponga over Gidley or Mullen?
At 6.
Oh, just in the team. I was either thinking of him at 6 or 14 over Gidley or Mullen.
I'd just have him at fullback. I wouldn't have him anywhere else.
Yeah.
All right, so I can't believe you didn't even think of this. I've got Gidley and Tahu on the right-hand side. So Tahu's the winger, Gidley's the centre. How don't you see that as one of the best winger-centre combinations in history of the game?
Yeah.
Like, come on. Come on. And then I've got McDougall at the other centre. Australian player, New South Wales player, one of the most dominant outside backs in his era. The battles he had with Wendell Sailor were, incredible. And then you got one of the fastest players to ever play the game in Darren Albert. Imagine him playing now with the speed techniques they've got now. He could be even faster than he was.
Yeah.
So
I'd still have Gay Guy over him.
Nah, no way in hell. Gay Guy, he was a big fish in a little pond, so he looked good at Newcastle when they were shit. I've gone the same halves as you.
He was their best player.
Big fish, little pond.
Albert's only famous for one thing.
You just don't like him because of what he did, who he did it to.
I just like the fact that Gay Guy's the only winger that's won an Origin Man of the Series.
Okay, so I've gone with you. I reckon Mullen could have been a lot better if someone could pull his head in. And I'm not saying Andrew Johns could have because he was probably worse, but, it is what it is.
Their egos will take up a big middle of that field.
Yeah, so obviously you got Johns at halfback, and then Medeiros at hooker, which is pretty simple. I've actually got Harrigan and Josh Perry as my front rowers. I reckon Perry was very underrated in his career. He was
a damn good player.
Yeah, so he wasn't overly thought of, but I reckon he's good. I got Simpson and Kennedy. The reason I said I'm going to tell you why is because Kennedy and Simpson probably played the best games ever, both at second row in the 2001 grand final. I think Kennedy scored 2 tries, and Simpson actually saved 2 tries when they're over the line, and they were just pillars out on the edge for Newcastle. So I think they're the best second rowers Newcastle ever had, and they played at the same time. Then I've actually got one of the most underrated players I've ever seen or heard of in rugby league playing at lock. He also played an 01 grand final player.
Todd Lowry.
Pull your head in. Bill Peden.
Reynoldson.
Bill Peden. He was everything you want in the lock. He had some hands on him. He was a Newcastle junior. He was just a tough as nails player. So him in the middle, and he could play 80 minutes as well, which was incredible. So he's a really good player.
Sounds like Jeremy Smith, just not as good.
Nah, Bill Peden was better than Jeremy Smith. He didn't hit toss anyone. Anyway. And then obviously I've got Gidley at 14. I would say he's polarising, but I think that's understating it. Either you love him or you really, really, really hate him. I do think for the positions he could cover in the back line and hooker, halves, he could have been one of the best utilities ever. I don't think
I thought you were talking about the next position.
No. I don't think he was. I think he's just a 14. I never thought he was a great fullback or anything like that. He could just come in, create a bit of spark. So everyone who laughs at the fact that he got benched for that Origin game when he was captain, that's where he should have been playing anyway. He should not have been captain, but that's where he should have been playing. Then I got Clemmer on the bench as well. And I got Butterfield, front rower. So he's going to come on, pretty much be the aggressive person on fullback. And then I got he didn't play very long there, but I reckon he was really good when we played against Melbourne in the preliminary final. I think it was 2014.
Oh, picking him off one game. Solid. I like it.
No. He played there for like 3 years. Bo Scott.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like him either. He's a really solid player.
If we were doing a Dragons team, I would have put him in because he was on my list.
Yeah.
But it came down to him or Jeremy Smith, and I'd rather Jeremy Smith for their Newcastle careers.
When they played in the same field, played in the same team in the Newcastle careers, they were pretty bad. They were pretty badass.
Yeah.
So I've got him on the bench. So I've got Ponga, Tahu, Gidley, McDougall, Albert, Mullen, Johns, Harrigan, Badiris, Josh Perry, Simpson, Kennedy, Peden, Gidley, Clemmer, Scott, and Butterfield. So if anyone's listening to this, if anyone actually listens to this podcast, send us your thoughts on what team we reckon will win.
Yeah,
I know a few people.
We'll write them up and put it up on Facebook and Twitter and everything so you can actually see them and compare them.
I know a few people are going to not say the Newcastle team just because Gidley's in it. I'm looking at you, Billy.
You're comparing that against Manly, the most hated team in the comp?
You're not anymore. You were in the early 90s when what are the Silver Tails and you...
No, that was way earlier.
Point is that I don't know that many people who hate Manly anymore, to be honest.
She come into my staff room.
Okay, yeah. So if anyone has any comments or anything like that, get on Twitter, get on Facebook, criticize us. I don't care what you say. I know I'm right. So either way.
And also remember, if you're a fan of a different team to ours, go back to 1988. So we're trying to keep the time frame
the same.
Accurate. So obviously the Cowboys, Warriors coming in after that, you'll have less, but you've got a lot of talented players still to choose from. Put forward your best 17. Send it to a direct message through Twitter. Send it as a message on Facebook. Put it in a comment on YouTube, wherever you can get it. We're going to try and bring them all in, and we're going to set up like a bracket-style tournament. And Jarrod and I will judge the winner of each thing and come down to the best club team from 88 onwards. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I can see the Broncos having a damn strong team.
Broncos and Melbourne are going to be hard to beat. Yeah. We might have to put them against each other in the first bracket.
It depends. Oh, what a shame.
One of them's out.
We'll draw it out of a hat to make it as fair as possible. But
I don't. Yeah,
how would you
Broncos
fit
team.
Lockyer, Lewis, Langer, Walters all in the same team?
This is going to be a big call.
Right.
I wouldn't have Langer in the team.
Huh?
I wouldn't have Langer in the team.
Yeah, I could just,
I would have Lockyer at fullback. I'd have Lewis and probably put Ben Hunt ahead of him. I don't rate Langer. I don't think he was as good as everyone said he was. Now we're going to get some feedback.
That was all on him. Far out. So, bloody hell. We'll post this one, which will be Thursday morning. Keep an eye out. Make sure we'll give it probably like 2 weeks. That'll give us another 2 weeks before the season starts to get the brackets done over a couple of episodes. And we'll crown the winner of the 6 again 1988 onwards best team.
And whoever picks the best team, Adam will buy him a carton of beer.
Yes.
Yes.
Carton. Yes. Yeah. Sure.
So there you go. There's your incentive, guys.
Depending on who wins, that's going to be some expensive beer. So coming up on Sunday's show, we've got our last probably interview of this sort of lot that we had lined up. Jarrod's going to put out a clue or so. I think you already have, haven't you, on Facebook?
No, I haven't, because we had that interview with the Mole tonight. So I'll probably post it on Thursday to Friday. I'm going to make it a lot harder this time because, what was it, Kevin Carb?
Yeah, well done, Kevin. Kevin, big Kev. Carb.
Yeah, he picked it out straight away. So I'm going to make this one a bit harder. For people who already know who it is, don't say anything, please, because we want to try and make this a bit fun. So, yeah, I'll make it a bit harder, put some stats down, and maybe you'll see how you go figuring it out.
Yeah, the other conversation point we're going to be doing on Sunday, unless there's something big from the NRL between now and then, Jarrod and I are going to start our discussion / argument about conference systems in the NRL. I'm right. It's going to be great. All right. So, see you guys. Hope you really enjoyed the interview. Hope you enjoyed Why Manly's Better Than Newcastle, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
See you guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Six Again. Connect with the show on Twitter, Instagram, and the Six Again website. All links via the show's bio. Be sure to check out Adam's craft beer choice of the week.